The space station floated in the darkness between three dying stars. It was old, older than most species could remember. The Galactic Military Academy had trained soldiers here for almost 1,000 years. Warriors from every corner of the known universe came to this place to prove themselves. Some became legends. Most became forgotten. Jake Mitchell pressed his face against the cold window of the transport ship. He watched the station grow larger as they approached. It looked like a metal flower with 100 petals, each one holding training grounds, dormitories, and weapons facilities. Lights blinked across its surface like tiny heartbeats. He was 23 years old. Brown hair. Average height. No special features that made him stand out. On Earth, he had been a decent soldier. Nothing more, nothing less. But here, among the stars, he was something else entirely. He was rare. He was the only human in this year's training group. The transport ship docked with a heavy thump. Jake grabbed his bag and joined the line of cadets walking through the long metal hallway. The air smelled different here, recycled, artificial. It made his nose itch. Around him walked creatures that made his heart beat faster. A Gorvan stood to his left. It was 8 feet tall with gray skin like stone and arms thicker than Jake's entire body. Its small eyes looked straight ahead, showing no emotion. To his right moved a Talari, a slim creature covered in silver fur. It walked on 4 legs but could stand on 2 when needed. Its movements were quick and nervous, like a deer ready to run. Nobody spoke to Jake. Some looked at him with curiosity. Most looked at him with something close to pity. Humans were new to the galactic community. They had only made first contact 15 years ago. To these ancient species, humans were like children who had just learned to walk. A loud voice filled the hallway through hidden speakers. All cadets report to the central arena. Orientation begins in 10 minutes. Do not be late. Jake followed the crowd through winding corridors. The station was a maze of metal and glass. Screens on the walls showed maps and schedules in dozens of languages. Jake's translator chip, implanted behind his ear, worked hard to keep up with all the alien text. The central arena took his breath away. It was massive. A circular space the size of 10 football fields. The floor was made of some kind of sand that shifted under his boots. High walls surrounded the arena, and above them sat rows and rows of seats. Observation decks with tinted windows looked down from even higher. Important people watched from up there. Admirals, generals, politicians. They came to see the new cadets. They came to judge. Jake counted 42 other cadets in the arena. He was the smallest one there. A door at the far end of the arena slid open with a hiss. Through it walked a creature that made Jake's stomach tighten. It was Aurelian, 7 feet tall, covered in scales that shone dark green under the arena lights. Its eyes were yellow with vertical black slits. It wore a military uniform decorated with medals and symbols Jake did not recognize. "I am Commander Vex," the Aurelian announced. His voice was deep and cold. "For the next 2 years, I will turn you from soft civilians into weapons of the Galactic Alliance. Some of you will succeed. Many of you will fail. A few of you might die." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Commander Vex walked slowly in front of the line of cadets. His clawed feet clicked against the sandy floor. "You come from different worlds, different species, different cultures. None of that matters here. In my arena, you are all equal. Equally weak, equally untested, equally worthless until you prove otherwise." He stopped in front of Jake. Those yellow eyes looked down at the human with an expression Jake could not read. "Ah, the Earthling. I have read your file. Your species is interesting, fragile, no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. Yet here you are." "Yes, sir," Jake said. His voice was steady. He refused to show fear. Commander Vex made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We shall see how long you last." He continued walking and stopped at the center of the arena. "Today, you will face your first test. Not a test of strength or speed or intelligence. A test of something deeper. Something that cannot be taught." The commander raised his clawed hand. The doors at the far end of the arena opened again. What came through those doors made several cadets cry out. One Telari fainted on the spot. A Gorvan stepped backward, its stone-like face showing real fear for the first time. The Kalvex entered the arena. Jake had heard stories about the war beasts. Every cadet had. But stories could not prepare him for the reality. The creature was 12 feet tall at the shoulder. Its body was covered in scales that were black as the void between stars. 6 legs carried it forward with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. Its head was long and angular, with a mouth full of teeth that could bite through starship hulls. But the worst part was its eyes. 4 of them, arranged in pairs, burning with an orange fire that spoke of ancient intelligence. The Kalvex had been created during the first expansion, over 10,000 years ago. It was a living weapon, a biological machine designed to destroy armies. According to legend, a single Kalvex had once killed 50,000 soldiers in a single battle. They could not be reasoned with. They could not be controlled. They could only be pointed at enemies and released. Energy chains appeared around the beast, glowing bright blue. They held it in place, but just barely. The Kalvex tested them, pulling against the restraints. The chains flickered but held. "The Kalvex will test each of you," Commander Vex announced. "It reads intent. It senses fear. It cannot be fooled or tricked. You will each face it alone. Those who run will fail. Those who attack without thought will fail. Only those the beast finds worthy will pass." Jake watched the creature. It had stopped pulling against the chains. Now it was watching the cadets with those burning eyes, studying them, judging them. One question burned in Jake's mind. A question he could not answer. What did the beast consider worthy? He would have to wait for his turn to find out. As the smallest and weakest cadet, he knew he would be tested last. That gave him time. Time to watch. Time to learn. Time to understand. The first cadet to face the Kalvex was a Gorvan named Brock. He was the biggest one in the group. His arms were like thick tree branches. His chest was wide enough to block a doorway. When he walked, the ground seemed to shake under his weight. Brock stepped into the center of the arena with confidence. His small eyes showed no fear. The Gorvans were known across the galaxy as the strongest species. They had crushed enemies with their bare hands. They had broken through walls of solid metal. Brock believed his strength would be enough. Commander Vex raised his hand. The energy chains around the Kalvex disappeared. The war beast did not attack immediately. Instead, it began to circle Brock, slowly, carefully. Those 4 burning eyes never blinked. Its black scales shifted and moved like they were alive. Each of its 6 legs placed itself perfectly on the sandy floor without making a sound. Brock turned with the beast, keeping his eyes on it. Sweat began to form on his gray skin. The silence in the arena was heavy. Every cadet held their breath. Then the Kalvex moved. It happened so fast that Jake almost missed it. One moment the beast was walking slowly. The next moment it was flying through the air toward Brock, its mouth opened wide, showing rows of teeth that gleamed like knives. Brock did what his instincts told him to do. He swung his massive fist at the creature's head. The Kalvex dodged the punch like it was nothing. It twisted its body in midair and slashed its claws across Brock's chest. The Gorvan flew backward and crashed into the sand. 3 deep cuts marked his stone-like skin. Purple blood began to flow. Failed. Commander Vex announced. His voice showed no emotion. Aggression without wisdom. Next. Medical staff rushed in to help Brock. He was still alive, but his pride was wounded more than his body. As they carried him away, Jake saw the shame in his eyes. The strongest cadet had been beaten in seconds. The next to face the beast was a Talari named Swift. Her silver fur shone under the arena lights. She was known for her speed. Her species could run faster than most vehicles. They could dodge attacks that other creatures could not even see coming. Swift entered the arena with quick, nervous movements. When the energy chains disappeared, she immediately began to move. She ran in circles around the convex, becoming a silver blur. Her plan was clear. She would tire the beast out. She would stay out of its reach until it could not fight anymore. The convex did not chase her. It stood perfectly still in the center of the arena. Its burning eyes followed Swift's movements, but its body did not move. It waited. Minutes passed. Swift kept running. Her breathing became heavier. Her movements became slower. Even the fastest runners could not run forever. When Swift's speed dropped for just one moment, the convex acted. It moved with terrifying precision. One of its 6 legs swept out and knocked Swift off her feet. Before she could recover, a massive paw pinned her to the ground. Failed, Commander Vex said. Speed without purpose. Next. Jake watched from the line of waiting cadets. He began to notice things. The convex was not just testing their fighting skills. It was looking for something else. Something deeper. The 3rd cadet was a Mindari. His species had powerful minds. They could read thoughts and send images directly into other creatures' brains. Some Mindari could even control weaker minds completely. The Mindari walked toward the convex with closed eyes. He was focusing his mental powers. Jake could see the air around him shimmer slightly. The Mindari was trying to project fake confidence into the beast's mind. He wanted to make the convex believe that he was stronger than he really was. The war beast tilted its head. For a moment, it seemed confused. Then its eyes narrowed. A low growl came from deep in its throat. The Mindari screamed and fell to his knees. Blood began to flow from his nose and ears. The beast had not touched him physically, but it had done something to his mind. Something painful. Failed, Commander Vex announced. Deception is useless against a creature that has seen 10,000 years of lies. Next. Cadet after cadet faced the beast. A Christan warrior tried to intimidate it with bright flashing lights from his crystal body. The convex ignored the display and knocked him down with a casual swipe. A Ventorian with poisonous spines tried to spray the beast with toxins. The convex S-scales were immune to poison. A silicoid made of living rock tried to outlast the beast by refusing to move. The convex simply picked him up and threw him out of the arena. 30-7 cadets faced the war beast. 37 cadets failed. Some were injured badly. Others escaped with only scratches. But all of them shared the same look of confusion and defeat. They had come to the academy as the best warriors of their species. The convex had shown them that they were nothing. Jake stood at the end of the line. He was the only cadet who had not been tested. The other failed cadets sat along the walls of the arena. Some were getting medical treatment. Others simply stared at the floor with empty eyes. The convex stood in the center of the arena. It did not look tired. It did not look satisfied. If anything, it looked disappointed. Its burning eyes scanned the failed cadets with what Jake thought might be sadness. That observation stuck in Jake's mind. Why would a war beast feel sad? Human, Commander Vex called out. There was a strange tone in his voice. It might have been amusement. It might have been curiosity. You are the last. Step forward. Jake took a deep breath. He thought about everything he had seen. The convex was not impressed by strength. It was not fooled by speed. It could see through lies. It was not scared by threats dog, so what was it looking for? Jake remembered stories from Earth. Stories his grandmother had told him when he was a child. Stories about wolves and humans. About how ancient people had faced dangerous predators and somehow made them into friends. About how his ancestors had looked into the eyes of creatures that could kill them and seen something more. He remembered his father's voice. His father had been a forest ranger in Montana. Once, he had faced a grizzly bear that was protecting its cubs. The bear could have killed him easily, but his father had not run. He had not attacked. He had stood still, looked the bear in the eyes, and spoken softly. After a long moment, the bear had turned and walked away. The secret, his father had said, is respect. Animals know when you respect them. They know when you see them as more than just threats. Jake stepped into the center of the arena. The sand shifted under his boots. The Calvex turned its massive head toward him. Those burning eyes locked onto his face. Commander Vex raised his hand. The energy chains disappeared. The war beast was free. Jake did not move. He stood perfectly still and looked directly into the Calvex's ancient eyes. Whatever happened next would change everything. The arena was completely silent. Not even the sound of breathing could be heard. Every eye in the massive space was fixed on the small human standing, alone in the center of the sand-covered floor. The Calvex began to move toward Jake. Its 6 legs carried it forward with slow, careful steps. Each footfall was deliberate. Each movement was a test. The beast was watching Jake's reaction to every inch it closed between them. Jake felt his heart beating hard in his chest. His palms were sweating. Every part of his brain was screaming at him to run, to fight, to do something. But he forced himself to stay still. He kept his eyes locked on the burning orange gaze of the war beast. The creature was massive up close. Its head alone was bigger than Jake's entire body. Its teeth were as long as his forearm. Its breath washed over him in hot waves. It smelled like metal and fire and something else. Something ancient. Like the smell of mountains that had existed before life itself. The Calvex stopped 3 feet away from Jake, close enough that he could reach out and touch its black scales. Close enough that it could kill him with a single bite. The beast lowered its head until its eyes were level with his. Jake looked into those eyes. He did not see the mindless rage of a monster. He did not see the cold calculation of a killing machine. He saw something that surprised him. He saw intelligence. He saw awareness. He saw a being that had lived for 10,000 years and had seen things that no other creature could imagine. And deep in those burning eyes, Jake saw something else. He saw loneliness. The Calvex had been created as a weapon. For its entire existence, it had been feared, chained, used to destroy, and then locked away until it was needed again. Every creature it met saw it as a threat. Every being it encountered wanted to either kill it or run from it. Jake understood that feeling. Not completely, of course. He had not lived for 10,000 years. He had not been created as a weapon. But he knew what it was like to be judged before being known. He knew what it was like to be seen as less than what he really was. Without breaking eye contact, Jake slowly raised his right hand. He did not make a fist. He did not reach for a weapon. He simply held his hand out, palm open, fingers relaxed, behind him. He heard several cadets gasp. Commander Vex made a strange sound that might have been surprise. The Calvex tilted its head. This was something it had never seen before. In 10,000 years of trials, no cadet had ever offered an open hand to the war beast. They had offered fists. They had offered weapons. They had offered fear and aggression and deception. But never this. Never simple, honest connection. The beast leaned forward. Its nostrils, hidden between its scales, opened wide. It smelled Jake's hand. It breathed in his scent. It tasted the chemicals in his sweat. And through those chemicals, it read his emotions, his intentions. His heart. Jake was afraid. The Kalvex could smell that clearly. But his fear was not the kind that led to panic. It was the healthy fear of a creature that understood danger but chose to face it anyway. Under that fear, there was something else. There was respect. There was curiosity. There was genuine interest in the ancient being standing before him. There was no hatred, no desire to dominate, no wish to destroy. The Kalvex made a sound deep in its throat. It was not a growl. It was not a roar. It was something softer. Something Jake's translator chip struggled to understand. Memories flowed through the war beast's ancient mind. It remembered its creation. The pain of being born in the laboratory. The confusion of its first thoughts. The fear of the scientists who had made it. It remembered its first battle. The screaming of soldiers. The smell of death. The emptiness that followed victory. It remembered 10,000 years of the same. Cycle, creation, war, imprisonment, war again. Every species it encountered saw it the same way. A monster. A weapon. A thing to be used and feared. But this small human with his open hand and steady eyes. This creature saw something different. Jake felt something change in the air. The tension that had filled the arena began to fade. The Kalvex S, which had burned with fierce intensity, seemed to soften. Not weaken, just warm. "I see you," Jake said softly. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Not what they made you to be. Not what they use you for. I see you." He did not know if the beast could understand his words. He did not know if his translator chip could convert human speech into something the Kalvex would recognize. But he spoke anyway, because the words were not really for the beast's ears. They were for its heart. "You are not just a weapon," Jake continued. "You are old. You are wise. You have seen things that no one else has seen. You deserve respect. You deserve to be known." The Kalvex made that soft sound again. This time, Jake's translator chip managed to process it. One word appeared in his mind. Understanding. The war beast moved closer. So close that Jake could feel the heat of its body. So close that its scales almost touched his still raised hand. And then something happened that would be remembered for 1,000 years. The Kalvex lowered itself to the ground. Its 6 legs folded beneath it. Its massive head descended until it was below Jake's chest. Its burning eyes looked up at him with an expression that was almost peaceful. The ancient war beast. The destroyer of armies. The terror of 1,000 battlefields. Was bowing to a human. The silence in the arena shattered. Cadets shouted in disbelief. Commander Vex dropped his datapad. It hit the floor with a crack that echoed through the space. In the observation decks above, officers and admirals rose from their seats with expressions of pure shock. Jake slowly lowered his hand until it rested on the Kalvex-S head. The scales were warm under his palm. They vibrated slightly, like a cat purring. He could feel the beast's heartbeat through that touch. Slow, steady, content. "Good," Jake whispered. "That is good." The Kalvex rumbled again. The translator chip processed the sound into another word. Pack. Jake smiled. He did not fully understand what was happening. He did not know what came next. But he knew, deep in his bones, that something important had just changed. Something that could not be undone. The war beast had chosen him. Now he had to figure out what that meant. The next 3 days were chaos. Jake barely had time to sleep. Medical teams wanted to examine him. Scientists wanted to scan his brain. Military officers wanted to question him. Politicians wanted to speak with him. Everyone wanted something from the human who had done the impossible, but the Kalvex would not let anyone get too close. The war beast had not left Jake's side since the trial. It followed him through the corridors of the space station like a massive, deadly shadow. When Jake ate in the cafeteria, the Kalvex lay beside his table. When Jake slept in his small dormitory room, the beast curled up outside his door. No one could enter without its permission. At first, the station's security forces tried to restrain the Kalvex. They brought out energy chains and containment fields. The beast simply looked at them with its burning eyes. The guards quickly backed away. They had all seen what the Kalvex could do. They had no wish to test its patience. Commander Vex came to Jake's room on the second day. The Rillian stood at a safe distance from the war beast, his yellow eyes showing an emotion Jake had not seen before. Uncertainty. In 10,000 years, Commander Vex said slowly, the Kalvex has never bonded with anyone. It has been tested by millions of cadets. Billions, perhaps. Warriors from every species in the galaxy. None of them were chosen. Jake sat on his bed, the Kalvex's massive head resting near his feet. He was gently scratching the beast behind what he had started calling its ears. Small bumps on the side of its head that seemed sensitive to touch. I did not do anything special, Jake said honestly. I just stood there. That is what makes it special, Commander Vex replied. You did not attack. You did not run. You did not try to trick the beast or dominate it. You simply showed yourself. Your true self. The Rillian paused. His scales shifted color slightly, which Jake had learned was a sign of deep thought. The Kalvex reads intention, Commander Vex continued. It sees through every mask, every lie, every hidden desire. In your heart, it found something it recognized, something it wanted. But we do not understand what that something is. Jake looked down at the war beast. Its eyes were half closed with contentment as he scratched its scales. I think I understand, Jake said slowly. At least a little bit? Then explain it to me. Jake thought carefully about his words. The Kalvex is old. It has been alone for 10,000 years. Everyone who comes to it wants something from it. They want to use it, control it, prove themselves against it. But no one ever wanted to know it, to connect with it, to see it as more than just a weapon. Commander Vex frowned. It is a weapon. That is what it was created to be. Created, yes, Jake agreed. But is that all it has to be? Humans created many things. Dogs were created from wolves for hunting. But they became companions, friends, family. He gestured at the Kalvex. This creature has a mind, a heart, a soul. It has been waiting for someone to see that, to acknowledge it. The Rillian was silent for a long moment. Then he shook his head slowly. Humans, he said. Your species has been part of the galactic community for only 15 years. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. By all logic, you should be nothing. Pray for stronger species. Yet here you are, bonding with a creature that has terrified the galaxy for 10,000 years. Jake smiled slightly. We are good at making friends, so it seems. On the third day, Jake was summoned to appear before the Galactic Council. The council was made up of representatives from every major species in the Alliance. They met in a massive chamber at the center of the station. Curved seats rose in circles around a central platform. Hundreds of alien faces looked down at Jake as he walked in. The Kalvex walked beside him. The chamber fell completely silent. Many of the representatives had never seen a Kalvex in person. They had only heard stories. Now the legendary war beast was walking calmly through their most important meeting place, following a human like a loyal pet. Jake stopped in the center of the platform. The Kalvex sat down next to him, its massive body creating a comforting warmth at his side. Admiral Korth spoke first. He was Aurelian like Commander Vex, but older and more decorated. His scales were faded with age, and his eyes showed the weight of many difficult decisions. "Private Jake Mitchell of Earth," the Admiral said, "you have done something that was believed to be impossible. The Kalvex has chosen you. It has bonded with you. This has never happened before in recorded history." Jake nodded but said nothing. He was not sure what response was expected. "The Council has many questions," Admiral Korth continued. "But first, we must understand the nature of this bond. What exactly happened in that arena? What did you do?" Jake took a deep breath. He looked around at the hundreds of alien faces watching him. Most showed curiosity. Some showed fear. A few showed hostility. They did not trust this strange human who had achieved what their best warriors could not. "I did not do anything," Jake said. His voice was calm and clear. "That is the point. I did not fight. I did not run. I did not try to trick or control. I simply stood there and let the Kalvex see who I really am." "And who are you exactly?" A voice called from the upper seats. It belonged to a Gorvan representative. His stone face twisted with suspicion. Jake considered the question carefully. "I am human," he finally said. "My species is young. We are weak compared to most of you. We have no claws, no armor, no poison, no speed, no telepathy. By every measure, we should not have survived. We should have been eaten by predators long before we could build our first tools." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "But we are still here. We survived because we learned to connect. With each other, with our environment, even with the creatures that wanted to kill us. On Earth, we turned wolves into dogs. We turned wild horses into partners. We found a way to communicate with beings that were completely different from us." Jake placed his hand on the Kalvex's head. The beast made its rumbling purr sound. "The Kalvex was looking for connection," Jake said. "It has been tested by warriors for 10,000 years. Warriors who saw it as an enemy, an obstacle, a thing to be conquered. But it was never looking for a conqueror. It was looking for a friend." The chamber was silent. The representatives looked at each other with uncertain expressions. "Humans are strange," Admiral Korth said slowly. "Your logic is unusual." Jake smiled. "I have been told that before." The Kalvex raised its head and made a sound. Jake's translator chip processed it into a single word that echoed through the chamber. Truth. The council had much more to discuss. The council meeting lasted for 7 hours. Representatives from dozens of species argued about what to do with Jake and the Kalvex. Some wanted to study the bond. Others wanted to separate them by force. A few suggested that Jake should be imprisoned as a potential threat. After all, he now controlled the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. But the Kalvex made its opinion clear. Whenever someone suggested harming Jake or taking him away, the war beast would growl. The sound was deep and terrifying. It shook the walls of the chamber. It reminded everyone that the Kalvex could kill everyone in the room before anyone could even scream. In the end, the council made a careful decision. Jake would continue his training at the academy. The Kalvex would stay with him. Scientists would study the bond from a safe distance. And Jake would answer questions whenever he could. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Jake's life at the academy was not easy. Many cadets still looked at him with suspicion or jealousy. A few tried to challenge him, thinking that defeating the human would somehow give them power over the Kalvex. Those challenges ended quickly and painfully. The war beast did not kill anyone, but it made clear that anyone who threatened Jake would regret it. Commander Vex pushed Jake harder than any other cadet. He made Jake run obstacle courses. Learn alien languages. Study galactic history. Practice with weapons of every kind. The commander seemed determined to turn Jake into a proper soldier, despite his human weaknesses. "You have been given a great gift," Commander Vex said one day during training. "The Kalvax chose you. That means you carry a responsibility. You must be worthy of that choice." Jake wiped sweat from his face. He had just finished running 5 miles in heavy gravity. His legs felt like they were filled with sand. "I am trying," he said between breaths. "Try harder." The Kalvax watched from the side of the training field. Sometimes it made sounds that Jake's translator chip interpreted as encouragement. Other times it made sounds that seemed like laughter. The ancient beast appeared to find Jake's struggles amusing. Slowly, things began to change. Other cadets started approaching Jake, not to challenge him, but to talk. They were curious about humans, about Earth, about how such a weak species had produced someone who could bond with a Kalvex. Jake told them stories. He talked about wolves becoming dogs, about humans riding horses across plains, about dolphins helping fishermen, about all the ways that humans had learned to connect with other creatures throughout their history. "We were never the strongest," Jake explained to a group of cadets one evening in the common room. "We were never the fastest or the toughest. So we had to find other ways to survive. We learned to cooperate, to communicate, to find common ground with beings that were different from us." A Telari cadet named Runner raised her hand. "But why?" "Other species cooperate with their own kind. That is normal. But you cooperate with completely different creatures. Creatures that could kill you. That is not normal." Jake thought about the question. The Kalvex lay beside him, its eyes half closed in contentment. "I think," Jake said slowly, "it is because we see ourselves in others. When I look at the Kalvex, I do not see a monster. I see a being that wants to be understood, that wants to belong, that does not want to be alone." He shrugged. "Those are feelings that every creature shares. We just learn to recognize them in beings that look nothing like us." The cadets were quiet for a moment. Then a Gorvan named Stone spoke up. His voice was deep and rumbling. "You are saying that the Kalvex is lonely?" Jake nodded. 10,000 years of being feared. 10,000 years of being used and then locked away. Would you not be lonely? Stone looked at the war beast with new eyes. For the first time, he did not see a monster. He saw a creature that had suffered for longer than his entire species had existed. "I never thought of it that way," Stone admitted. The Kalvex opened its eyes and looked at Stone. It made a soft sound. Jake's translator chip processed it. Scene. Stone's eyes widened. "Did it just—" "Yes," Jake said with a smile. "It knows you understand now." Over the following months, something remarkable happened. The Kalvex began to interact with other cadets. Not aggressively, not as a test, but as a curious being wanting to know more about the creatures around it. It let Runner run beside it during morning exercises. Her silver fur flew in the wind as she matched pace with the ancient beast. It allowed Stone to sit near it during meals. The massive Gorvan would share stories about his homeworld while the Kalvex listened with apparent interest. The cadets stopped seeing the war beast as a monster. They started seeing it as a person, a strange, terrifying, ancient person. But a person all the same. Commander Vex watched these developments with something that might have been amazement. He had spent his entire career believing that the Kalvex was nothing more than a weapon. Now he saw it playing what could only be described as games with young cadets, chasing them around the training field, letting them climb on its back, making sounds that were clearly laughter. 1 year after the trial, Admiral Karth returned to the academy. He found Jake in the central arena, the same place where everything had started. The convex lay in the center of the sandy floor, surrounded by cadets from a dozen different species. They were all talking and laughing together. The Admiral stood silently for a long moment, watching the scene. When I first heard what happened, he finally said to Jake, "I thought it was a mistake. Or a trick." The convex does not bond. Everyone knew that. It was created to destroy, not to love. Jake nodded but said nothing. "Now I see that we were wrong," Admiral Korath continued. "The convex was never just a weapon. We made it one. We treated it like one, and so it acted like one. But inside, it was always more. Every creature is more than what others see," Jake said quietly. "Every being has depths that are hidden, potentials that are never explored. The convex just needed someone to see past the scales and the teeth, to see the heart underneath." The Admiral looked at Jake with new respect. "Your species has been part of the galaxy for only 16 years. You have no empires, no ancient histories, no great technologies. And yet, I believe you may have just taught us something that we have needed to learn for thousands of years." "What is that?" "That connection is not weakness. That understanding is not surrender. That the creatures who seem most different from us may be the ones who need us most." The Admiral paused. "And that sometimes the smallest and weakest among us can see truths that the powerful have forgotten." The convex raised its head. It looked at Admiral Korath with those ancient, burning eyes. Then it made a sound that Jake's translator chip processed into words. "Humans understand. Humans see. Humans are pack." Jake smiled and scratched the war beast behind its ears. "Yes," he agreed. "We are." Far above, in the observation deck, other officers watched the scene. One of them, a young Telari lieutenant, turned to her commander. "What does this mean?" she asked. "For the Alliance? For the war?" The commander, an old Rillian with faded scales, shook his head slowly. "I do not know," he admitted. "But I think the galaxy is about to change. And I think these strange, soft, fragile humans are going to be at the center of that change." Below, Jake laughed at something the convex rumbled. The cadets around him joined in, their different voices, mixing into a sound of joy that echoed through the ancient arena, for the first time in 10,000 years. The war beast was not alone, and neither was the human who had seen its heart. The end.